The presenting sponsor of Moontower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and welcome to SWOONTOWER Soccer. I'm Steph Crugnola.
And I'm Mike Crugnola.
And today we are all about all the boys. So this Saturday night, we're facing Real Salt Lake, a team in the middle of a massive shift in perception at the national level. Scrappy, gutted out, 0 shot on goal matches are gone with the team second to Messi's Inter Miami in goals per game, 6th in goals conceded. And we're joined today by Micaela Miot, a huge RSL fan and crossover interest media type as host of Bowls with the Bard, a Stone Shakespeare podcast at 10K Shakespeare on TikTok and Instagram. Micaela, thank you so much for being here and for filling that Shakespeare/soccer niche with me.
I am so excited to be here. When you reached out, I was expecting to talk more about Shakespeare, but talking about soccer is just as exciting.
Yeah, we're doing a real brand shift this year.
Yeah.
We're getting technical and things.
Yeah, get you folks who can do both is really what we're trying to do here.
So I'm curious, Micaela, why RSL? What made you an RSL fan?
Oh, man. I was born and raised in Sandy, Utah, where the Riot is housed. So in 2005, when we became a team, my dad has always just been a huge soccer fan. So he was ecstatic to be able to get his kids into the thing that he loved, not just by playing, because we had been playing as little kids and he had been our coach, but finally to get to see players play at a professional level. So yeah, I've been with the team since the start, and I am a huge RSL fan as a result.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I love seeing those newer teams as they pop up and seeing still generational stories come out of that. That's a really cool thing about MLS, is that it is so new, but also we're still moving it forward from generation to generation. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, we're starting to build that longevity, right? That a league really needs to be part of the social consciousness, right? So
Yeah.
do y'all want to get into kind of the general topics here with RSL?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I feel like this episode is going to be tell us how good you are. Tell us again how good you are that we've seen, and then I guess we'll try on Saturday.
Well, so before that, I kind of want to look at the national coverage. This year especially has changed a lot around RSL, right? Going into the season, everyone was like, RSL's going to do RSL things, which means they're going to, lead the league in X-Dog and also have the worst shots on goal in the history of the sport. Did y'all know at the beginning of the season that wouldn't be true?
No. Oh my gosh. Yeah. When you sent a question about national coverage, the first thing that came to mind was oh my gosh, if you had asked me this question 3 seasons ago, I would have been so fired up, because I would have been what national coverage of RSL? Yeah. Before the Apple TV partnership became a thing, I don't think many people outside of our state even knew we were a soccer team. And yeah, it has a lot to do with what you were just talking about. We've always been scrappy. We've always been a good team, but we never scored goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt the most quote unquote national coverage we would get would be when the MLS released their power rankings, and my family would be do they even watch our games? Because they just arbitrarily drop us 6 slots, and all they would write would be them's the breaks. And we would be what does that mean? So this season it's been so refreshing to actually see MLS 360 talking about us in depth. Mm-hmm. And clearly understanding the mechanics of our team. I will say, I think that is absolutely a product of us doing well And I think at large, like the MLS could do better at giving coverage to like its smaller market teams.
Yes.
Sure.
And that's
Yeah.
really like why we started this, is because there are so many teams who have 0 points and don't get any attention and don't get any insight, but that discounts the fact that like maybe they played well. Maybe there is an upswing. Maybe they're changing things around internally, and they're seeing the team and the fans are seeing things that national media isn't. So that's exactly why teams like RSL 2-3 years ago are why we wanted to have these conversations, for sure.
Yeah, or the Colorado Rapids this year, right?
Yeah.
And every year forever. Generally, teams that Austin will play twice a year, right? And we know nothing about until they show up. And so we were like, well, I guess we could solve this. So thank you for coming on and doing this with us.
And I'm glad it's in a year that there is a lot nationally to talk about with RSL. But even in that coverage, is there anything that you're seeing internally that doesn't quite match up? Like now, are they going the opposite direction and not necessarily seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the last few weeks, like we could probably stand to have more conversations about like where our weaknesses have shown. We're still like kind of like, yeah, Chicho Arango. And it's like, well, actually, he hasn't scored in a couple of games. Like he's great. But like, you know, there are other players on our team who are helping to hold us up. So yeah. But for the most part, I've been pleasantly surprised. Like last night, they were talking about who they'd put on their all-star team. And I think Sasha Kleshtin was like Emeka Anelli. And I was like, oh, that's a great answer. And one that shows that you're paying attention. Like, so.
Yeah. I don't know who that is. Will you give us a little bit more information about Emeka Anelli?
Yeah, sure. Emeka Anelli is one of our midfielders. He's kind of playing multiple positions this year. He has a degree in biological engineering from Cornell.
Okay.
So he's incredibly smart, and that like doesn't always translate like onto a field, you know?
Sure.
But our coach, Pablo Mastroeni, has like said in interviews that he's just like remarkably fast at picking up skills in practices. And that shows this season. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and those are things, right, that like typically we're not going to focus on a midfielder who plays like kind of all over the pitch, right? That utility style player is not going to get those national flowers unless your team happens to be incredible, right?
Yes.
So that said, like one of the current national perspectives is that like, okay, RSL is finally investing in players. I think they need more, is like part of the conversation, right? Is that something that is reflected in the local perception of the team as well?
That's interesting. You know, like the local perception of the team has changed a lot in the last few years. In 2022, we had David Blitzer and Ryan Smith take over as owners of the team. And I think before they did that, our previous owner, Deloy Hansen, maybe had some like culture problems just in the organization in general.
In MLS? No.
I know. Crazy. But they have like really shifted the whole culture of like Utah sports in general. Like Ryan Smith is also a partial owner of the Utah Jazz. And both teams, since he has bought in, have really improved. That's like super exciting. And yeah, part of that has been like, we're finally investing in these players who are just excellent.
Yeah.
And I think it's like interesting because like, yeah, I guess we could buy a few more excellent players. And also like, even though we're like way at the bottom of the list for spending in the MLS, like we just have these excellent players anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think like if you're paying attention to the team, you're not really wanting right now.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a nice place to be in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's jump to players
Yeah.
because I was looking through your roster for the past couple games and I was blown away by how many different names I saw in positions. And for us right now, what are we, 7 players
Short.
short of a full roster? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
we don't even have a full senior roster right now. We are 3 players short of a full senior roster.
Oh,
and
that's
then-
rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, but I was really excited looking through the fact that you can rotate your squad in this really busy time of the year. And it looked like maybe you were rotated down last night. But if you could give us a little bit of insight on who your key players are, who you're expecting to see maybe this weekend at Austin, if they're gonna keep it rotated down just to, not kill us too badly. But who are the MVPs right now on RSL?
Yeah. One of the questions you asked was like, what's one of the keys to your success? And I think that we have a deep roster this season. And we have like 4 key players from the beginning of the season with injuries, and we still have like this incredibly deep roster. That being said, we have some like starters, some key starters who like if it goes our way, they're playing a full 90 pretty much every game. Obviously, we have Chicho Arango. He is competing for the Golden Boot right now, currently at the top of the list, beating the likes of Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and Denny Boanga, which is a crazy thing
Wild.
to say
Yeah.
as an RSL fan.
Right.
He has 13 goals on the season, 9 assists. He kind of rotates between being kind of like a number 9 and a number 10 for us. And he just has this like incredible confidence to him that I think is kind of like, I don't know. I feel like everybody picks up on the confidence. He has really like elevated the entire team. Which brings me to Andres Gomez, who we brought on last season. We spent a lot of money on him. And last season, when we would bring him on as fans, we would kind of like roll our eyes and be like, he's not going to do anything for us. And this season, he has 8 goals and 5 assists. And we like absolutely cannot imagine playing this season without him. It's going to be rough. He is, I think, the one player on our team who is called up for something this season. So we will lose him over the summer. I was going to talk about Emeka Eneli, but I've already done so. He just does like an incredible job of keeping us connected in the middle of the field. His passing accuracy is off the charts. And if it weren't for our game in Dallas last Saturday, he would be an Iron Man for us. He has played all but 20 minutes this season.
Wow.
So he has really been instrumental in our success. I'd say like the last huge player that I would mention would be Justin Glad. He plays defense for us. He's been a pillar of our team. They said in one of our recent games that his first season was in 2014, which I like still relate to him as a little baby. So I can't believe he's been with us for that long. But at the same time, like when you look at his stats, it's remarkable how frequently like we win when he's on the field, we don't when he's off. He's had some amazing clearances this season that are like the reason we have kept our 12-game unbeaten streak. So yeah,
Just sliding that in,
Yeah,
slide
right.
that in there.
But yeah, other than that, I would say like a couple of honorable mentions would be like Diego Luna. He has been really great for us this season up top.
From Texas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's one of our academy players. He's 20 years old. He's just like a rocket on the field. He's so good.
He's got the wildest tattoos. He's made some
Yes, he does.
choices.
And
Love
he's a
him.
tiny guy. Like it's crazy to watch him go up against. He'll have like 2 huge players against him, and he like makes his way around them both. Like he's really incredible. And then my other honorable mention would be Brian Ojeda. He's another big midfielder. He makes a lot of like really smart tactical fouls for us. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those guys not afraid to get in the mixer a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. That's what RSL needed, is more X-Dog on their team. So really glad to hear that that's happening. So one of the things that for me is most impressive is that like that use of those younger guys filling in, right? Like a lot of those players are supplemental roster players that are having outsized impact on the first team. Like we saw last night, because we are recording this on a Thursday. So we saw against Seattle on Wednesday night that Fidel Barajas came on as well, right? And he played, God, almost 40 minutes for y'all. And he's an 18-year-old boy. Like, what is that like for RSL? Is that a common feature of your team historically, having these young players step into these roles, or is that?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Like, yes, we've always had like a pretty good academy underneath us, and we pull those players up. I said Justin Glad, he's one of them. Diego Luna is another one. He's off in DC now, but Aaron Herrera was like huge for us when he was on our team. And yeah, we have a long history of watching like these young players kind of grow up with our team. And some of them end up going off, but a lot of them stay with us forever. I like don't think that that's quite new. I think what's new is the depth.
Sure.
Yeah.
That they're not coming on in like desperation. They're coming on
Yes.
really to add. Yeah.
Yes.
One name we haven't talked about yet, and I have to ask you about, is your starting goalkeeper, which may at this point be a shrug between Zach McMath and another supplemental player, Gavin Beavers. What is your take on watching Zach McMath this year?
You know, stats wise, he's actually had like a pretty good season. Like he has not let up a lot of goals.
Yeah.
That being said, some of the goals he has let up, he's crapped the bed a little bit. They've been like a little embarrassing to watch, and I think he's definitely a little bit of like an ego goalie in that like once that moment happens, you can see it impact the whole rest of the game. And like resting may have had to do a little bit with like playing Beavers in Seattle last night, but it also may have had to do with making a couple really big mistakes in the last game. So yeah, I don't know. He has also been a huge staple of our team since Nick Raimondo left. Like I think we were scared when we lost him. And he has filled those shoes like much better than we ever anticipated him to do. But I think we're also kind of looking forward to seeing like what's Beavers gonna do. Because he held his own against Seattle last night. He had a pretty good game.
Yeah, he looked good. And he's also young, right?
Yeah.
He's 19.
Like 19, yeah.
Crazy. Homegrown players. Turns out like we look at teams like Philly or like FC Dallas who sell their academy players out, right? And we say, oh, that's a good academy. But like to see what RSL is able to do with an academy that produces MLS talent, right? There's value. There's so much value in that, in not having to pay for replacement level or replacement plus level performances, right? One day we hope to be able to produce some academy talent here as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Austin this weekend. What are the keys to success for RSL on Saturday? I guess beyond through the rest of the season, but mostly what are y'all expecting when you get, or I guess when we get there on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think for us, like the key is really confidence. We have this 12-game unbeaten streak. The last 3 games, that's been very tentative. We have come back from a deficit in the last 3 games, and the last 2 of those coming back from the deficit felt like a fight. So I think like getting a little bit of our like pre those games confidence back would be huge. I think like Chicho scoring in this game would be huge, like him not going more games without that goal. Um, hmm. And then, yeah, just not making stupid mistakes. Like, I feel like the deficits we have been in have largely been because of really silly errors that, like, so easily could have been avoided. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on that, to close it out, what is the current fan and team narrative looking like? Is this something where you're seeing players and fans get overconfident when they face teams like Austin, who had a rocky start but have kind of started to swing up a bit? Is this something that you look at like an easy win that might cause some of those maybe sillier mistakes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like Utah has a culture of like fair weather fans. We're not like used to having good teams yet. So it's like the second we slip up a little bit, like even in these last few games, you've started to like see the comments go back to what they were a few seasons ago, where it's just like, whoa, do we even have fans? We are not nice to our players. That's crazy. But this season, like, it's turning around a little bit. The comment section is not a scary place to be this season, which is really nice. Good. And then I think, in addition to having like a winning culture, because we have these new owners who have like, they've totally made over our stadium. Like it looks like a beautiful soccer festival every time you walk in. And they brought our women's team back when we had lost them. And we're really filling the stadium like for the first time in a long time. When these owners first bought the team, it would say every week that we sold out the stadium, and then you would look at the games and you would be like, so the owners bought all the tickets. And this season it's like, oh, we sold out the stadium, and we sold out the stadium. Yeah. People are excited to be here and are getting into the culture of soccer in Utah. And that's so exciting to see. And I hope it sticks around beyond just when we are like hyper successful.
Yeah.
I hope so too for y'all, because that feeling is really great. And then when those comment sections get depressing and aggressive, it's not a good feeling, but like hopefully the majority of the fans who are getting in on this season kind of keep the positive momentum up.
Yeah. Pablo Mastroeni deserves it too. For getting through everything, your coach, through the past few years, and like seeing him get to implement a style that's actually fun to watch and fun to like be a fan of. That must be really cool for y'all.
It really is. People were calling for his neck for like the last few seasons, and it is really exciting to get to watch him. He makes such bold decisions. Like against Dallas last week, he subbed 4 people on at the same time, which like doesn't happen. That
Paid
and
off.
like yes. That and like he has like a team is the star mentality that hasn't quite worked out in the past few seasons. And this season, with like a sprinkle of an actual star in the mix, it's like the team actually is the star because they've elevated to the level of the star.
Yeah.
And that is Chicho, but that's, I think, also Pablo.
And I think that's a really interesting perspective, because we saw Chicho Arango like get forced out at LAFC, right? And then he leaves Pachuca after 6 months. And so everyone in Austin is like, this dude must be like a head case. Like he must be a problem if he's like, if LAFC doesn't want to keep him and he's so good, Pachuca doesn't want to keep him and he's so good. But like, it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah, no, we made him captain this season after we lost Damir Krylock. And when that first happened, I was like, last season he had a few like hothead moments. This guy's got to talk to the ref. Like, I don't know. But putting the armband on him has done some good for him. I also think there's an element. I think we have 5 Colombian players on the team.
Yeah.
And so I think like there's a level of him feeling like a leader, not just for the team, but for his country.
Mm-hmm.
And he has really stepped up there. You can see he connects with the Colombians on the team on the field in a way that's different from everybody else. But yeah, it's cool to watch him step up because I know exactly what you're talking about. He can definitely be a hothead, and I could see that coming into the locker room, but it doesn't seem to. So
good.
That's awesome. That's really exciting.
Yeah, because we love Chicho in this house. We think he's first off very handsome. Second off, very fun to watch score goals. And so we are Team Chicho generally. And so when the
just not on Saturday.
Correct.
Fair. That's valid.
All right, Micaela, this has been really fun. We're so grateful for your time and your insight. Where can people find and follow your work online?
Sure. I am at 10K Shakespeare on Instagram and TikTok. And then I own a theater company / podcast called Bulls with the Bard. You can find us doing Stoned Shakespeare live in Denver, Colorado, or you can find the podcast pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast.
Amazing. And we'll link those in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing all of this with us. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.